Okay, so we're really diving deep today into this like snapshot of 2025 we've got. And it's a wild one, let me tell you. We're talking about how the future's getting sculpted,
Yeah.
you know, but through this economic lens. So think eco-cities, digital nomads, all that good stuff.
And what's really got me hooked is how much 2025 is like this direct result of what we're seeing play out right now. But instead of just skimming the surface, these sources, they give us the nitty-gritty of where those trends are actually going.
Right. It's like we're getting a sneak peek behind the curtain. So give us an example. What's something concrete that really jumps out at you?
Well, take hybrid economies. We're not just talking theory anymore. We're seeing governments actually running experiments. Like the source mentions Sweden, they're partnering with tech companies to try out a 4-day work week nationwide.
Whoa, hold on. A 4-day work week for the whole country. That's pretty radical, isn't it?
It is, and it gets to this bigger point, I think, that keeps coming up. The lines between, like, the government, businesses, even social causes, they're all getting blurry. It's creating this really interesting web of solutions, but it's complex.
Like everyone's trying to figure out this new playbook as they go,
Mm.
which is exactly why we're here. So set the scene for us.
Yeah.
What does 2025 actually look like? Give us the vibe.
Well, imagine walking through San Francisco, right? But instead of concrete everywhere, there are rooftop farms, community gardens. It's like this green oasis in the middle of the city.
Wow. It's like blending futuristic sustainability with, I don't know, a bit of a throwback to our agricultural roots, maybe.
Exactly. And it's not just cities. The source talks about rural areas using tech in ways we've never seen. Imagine AI-powered tractors, sensors in the fields, all this data to help farmers be more efficient.
So we're seeing this fusion of the old and the new, the urban and the rural, all kind of grappling with these same questions of how we move forward. It makes you wonder, though, with all this tech, are we all becoming digital nomads by 2025? Is that just the norm now?
Well, not everyone, of course,
Yeah.
but it's definitely on the rise. And it's not just about working from a beach in Bali, although, hey, who wouldn't want that?
Right. Sign me up.
But seriously, imagine people moving between cities, rural areas, all while working remotely, contributing to local economies wherever they go. It's a whole new way of living and working.
It's amazing to think about the ripple effects of something like that.
Yeah.
But I imagine this shift, it doesn't come without its own set of challenges.
Oh, absolutely. And the source doesn't shy away from that. It talks about this renewed focus on social justice, activism. It's like, as much as things change, some things stay the same.
More things change.
Exactly. So while we see progress, issues like income inequality, the climate crisis, they haven't gone away. In fact, they're shaping a lot of the changes we're seeing.
So it's like this push and pull between innovation and trying to create a more just and sustainable world.
Which leads us to another key player in all of this: entrepreneurs. The source mentions this new breed of entrepreneur emerging, one that's driven as much by purpose as profit.
Yeah, and it's not just about tacking on social causes as an afterthought. It's about baking those values into the DNA of their companies from the start. Like, think about the rise of B Corp, businesses that are legally obligated to consider their impact on the environment, their workers, everything. It's a whole different ballgame.
It's like making it has taken on a whole new meaning. It's not just about the bottom line anymore, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of changing the game, we got to talk tech. Because 2025, it's seriously high tech from what we're seeing. So paint us a picture. What kind of cool stuff are people interacting with every day? Okay, so picture this. You're a farmer, right? But you're not just out there with old school tools. You've got AI-powered drones analyzing your soil, optimizing irrigation, the whole shebang. And those autonomous robots everyone's talking about, they're right there in the fields, helping manage the harvest.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's the future right there. It's like something out of a movie.
Totally. And remember those supply chain nightmares we used to have? Like constantly worried about where stuff was coming from, if it would arrive on time? Our sources are saying those days are becoming a distant memory.
Oh, tell me more about that. How is that even happening?
Well, blockchain is a big part of it. It's creating this insane level of transparency in the supply chain. You can track things from production to delivery every step of the way. No more guessing games.
Okay, now that's what I call a game changer. Blockchain always seemed kind of abstract. But to think it's actually making our lives easier, more efficient, it really makes you realize the potential here. But it can't all be smooth sailing, right? What about the downsides? What are our sources saying about the potential pitfalls of all this tech?
You're right. There are always two sides to every coin. And the sources definitely don't sugarcoat it. They talk about job displacement, for example, as AI and automation become more sophisticated.
Right, that's the big one, isn't it? What happens when the robots start doing our jobs? It's like a sci-fi movie waiting to happen.
Well, and this is really interesting. Some countries are actually starting to experiment with solutions right now, like universal basic income.
Whoa, UBI. Like actually giving everyone a guaranteed income, that's a huge shift.
It is, but it shows you how seriously people are taking this issue. It's like they're trying to get ahead of the curve, and figure out how to support people through these massive transitions.
It really makes you think about the future of work, doesn't it? And speaking of huge shifts, I'm dying to dig into the economy itself. How is all of this actually playing out in terms of economic systems in 2025?
Well, buckle up, because it's not as simple as it used to be. We're talking about hybrid models, blending elements of capitalism with things like social safety nets and environmental protections.
So it's like we're finally realizing that the economy isn't some separate entity, right? It's all connected to our social well-being, the health of the planet.
Exactly. It's a much more holistic approach, and it's really gaining traction in 2025. Remember when corporate social responsibility was this new kind of edgy idea?
Yeah, like companies were just starting to dip their toes into the whole doing good thing.
Well, now it's becoming the norm. Businesses are actually baking social and environmental impact into their business models right alongside profits.
So it's like a fundamental shift in how we define success even, not just for individuals, but for companies too.
100%. And it doesn't stop there. We're seeing all sorts of interesting trends popping up. Like, what about local currencies, bartering systems? Those seem to be having a moment in 2025 as well.
Yeah, it's like this push for more localized, community-driven solutions, right?
Absolutely. It's all about building resilience, empowering communities to be more self-sufficient. Especially with all the global uncertainty still swirling around, it seems like people are really drawn to the idea of having more control over their own economic destinies.
It's fascinating how it's like this blend of the local and the global. Communities are finding ways to thrive, even in the face of these larger economic shifts.
Yeah.
And what about this whole concept of a circular economy? That's another one that keeps popping up in our research.
Right, the circular economy. It's a pretty radical departure from how we do things now. Imagine a world where waste is minimized, resources are constantly being reused, repurposed.
So it's like closing the loop on the entire system, right?
Yeah.
Products are designed from the beginning with their end of life in mind.
Exactly. It's cradle-to-cradle thinking in its purest form, and it requires a major shift in mindset for sure, not to mention the infrastructure to support it.
It's like we're finally starting to understand that we can't just keep taking, making, and trashing stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a better way. But with all this talk about amazing innovations and solutions, are we being a little too optimistic about 2025? It can't all be sunshine and roses, can it?
Well, you've got a point there. Our sources don't shy away from the challenges either. I mean, even with all the progress, income inequality, it's still a huge issue. And the climate crisis, yeah, that's not going away anytime soon.
It's like this looming shadow, right? No matter how much we innovate, we still have to deal with the consequences of our actions. And those consequences often hit the most vulnerable the hardest.
Exactly. The sources even mention climate refugees, people displaced from their homes because of rising sea levels, extreme weather events. It's a stark reminder that this isn't some abstract problem, it's affecting real people's lives.
It's a heavy thought, for sure. And speaking of challenges, what about the digital divide? With tech playing such a central role in 2025, it seems like access, or lack thereof, becomes even more crucial.
100%. In fact, the sources highlight that pretty explicitly. They're saying these technological advancements, they don't automatically translate into a better future for everyone. If we're not careful, the digital divide could actually widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
It's like, it's not just about having the latest gadget, right? It's about having the skills, the education, the opportunities to actually thrive in this tech-driven world. Otherwise, we're just leaving a whole segment of society behind.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about making sure everyone has a seat at the table, so to speak.
So it sounds like 2025 is kind of a mixed bag, right? It's not this utopia we might dream of, but it's not a dystopia either. It's complex.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating, I think. We're not just looking at a predetermined future, we're actively grappling with it. Understanding the forces at play, the choices we're making, and the impact those choices will have.
Yeah, and it all boils down to choices, doesn't it? Because the future isn't set in stone. It's something we're actively creating every single day.
That's a great way to put it. And it's empowering, too, because means we all have a role to play in shaping a more just and sustainable future. Even if it feels like a small role, trust me,
Yeah.
it matters.
Well said. It's like
Yeah.
the ripple effect, right?
Sure.
Even the smallest actions can have a huge impact. So keep asking questions, stay curious, and never underestimate the power you have to make a difference.
Absolutely. Never stop questioning, never stop exploring, and most importantly, never lose hope.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of 2025. It's been quite a journey, from rooftop farms to the intricacies of a circular economy, from the potential of AI to the challenges we still need to overcome. It's a lot to process, but it's also incredibly inspiring. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the future. It's a future that's full of possibilities, and ultimately, it's up to all of us to make it a future we can be proud of.